My speech is about why we need stricter gun control now. Each day in the United States, somebody suffers the consequences of gun irresponsibility and the lack of gun control. Just last year, 481 mass shootings occurred in the United States, killing nearly 39,453 individuals. The probability of being killed by a gun in America is 1 in 315. That's pretty crazy if you think about it, considering 315 people is not a lot. Death by firearm is 50% more likely to occur than death in a vehicle. That statistic really shocked me, considering car accidents happen on such a regular basis and are really normalized. If you think about it, you could be driving to school and there might be a car accident, and it could happen pretty regularly. So the fact that it's 50% more likely is actually quite terrifying. These are some statistics from the Gun Violence Archive from 2019. Here you can see that there were 39,453 gun violence deaths. And then you can see some of them were suicides, 418 were from mass shootings, 31 from mass murders, 209 children, 776 teenagers. The list goes on. Here is examples of tragedy that have happened basically in our communities. First, the Thousand Oaks shooting. I got this information from CNN. It happened at the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks in California, November 2018. 12 victims lost their lives that night. Most of them were college students from UC Riverside, Pepperdine, Mount St. Mary's, all kinds of schools. They were there for college night. It was committed with a semi-automatic weapon, and 60 rounds were shot into the building. The police described it as a bloodbath and said it was a terrifying sight. The Saugus High School shooting was another tragedy that occurred really close to us. In November 2019, 2 children lost their lives and 3 others were injured. It was committed by a .45 caliber pistol by a 16-year-old student who also took his life. He accessed the gun from his dad, who didn't have it stored properly in a safe. Why it's an issue. There are no regulations on guns besides a minor background check. You could have severe mental health problems and still attain a gun. There's no screening, there's no assessment, they don't check anything regarding that. People who are mentally ill should not have weapons that can take the lives of others when a lot of the times they don't have the capability to care for themselves if they're exponentially impaired, which usually they are in mass shooting circumstances. Guns can be stored anywhere. There's no regulations on whether they are in a locked safe or out of reach from children, and I feel that that's something that should be really paid attention to, because a lot of these mass shootings are committed by teenagers who are depressed, who are angry at the world, and they see no other way out. Although it's never an excuse to do horrific things, they should have never had access to those guns. Here are some statistics on school shootings. In 2019 alone, the United States experienced 25 school shootings. That's terrifying. Considering I graduated high school last year, I remember partaking in gun safety drills and being scared to even go to school. Especially after the Stoneman Douglas shooting, I felt terrified being a high schooler and seeing what had happened to those kids. The normative of active shooting drills have become traumatizing to children, and they're not something that we should be taking part in regularly. Something should happen to where we don't even have to. It jeopardizes the comfort and the safety that children need to feel when attending school. Being in school is somewhere that children can have an alternative of being home, to feel that they're cared for, safe, and out of risk of danger. On the top left is the Sandy Hook victims, 20 of them were first graders. The Stoneman Douglas shooting victims, a majority of them were high schoolers. And the Virginia Tech, which was a college, and the largest school shooting in US history. Active shooter drills begin in all schools from preschool to high school. They can be really traumatizing as kids don't know the difference between real and acted out, especially when they're younger. It damages them psychologically and terrifies them and makes them really uncertain of their safety. I read a quote from NPR stating that a mother who said her child is terrified and scared every day that an active shooter will come into the school, and she doesn't feel like she can tell the difference between a drill and a regular. They should not have to fear their lives, especially when attending school somewhere that they should be cared for and felt safe. These are photos of an active shooting drill. You can see in the faces of these children that they are terrified, especially in the right. The girl underneath the chair looks like she doesn't even know what's going on. And I found the photo in the left actually quite shocking considering they're actually using fake guns. I can't even imagine the terror those children must have been feeling seeing those people walking down the hallways with a gun. Period. If it's real or a replica, it's not okay. How these shootings affect us. 79% of Americans express that they feel fear of a possible mass shooting that prevents them from partaking in normal activities. Not only do mass shootings present the loss of lives, but it can also inflict major mental health issues such as PTSD, depression, insomnia, night terrors, all kinds of horrific things that nobody should have to experience. They have occurred in grocery stores, concerts, schools, banks, festivals, the list can go on. And it's not okay because after these things happen, we're on edge and we don't feel safe anymore, especially when they're happening in our movie theaters, our malls, places that we should be able to attend safely every day. These are some possible solutions to creating a gun reform. Mental health screening. In many mass shooting cases, the perpetrators plead mental illness. And a lot of people feel that this is a clutch, but I also feel that a lot of them do have mental issues. And this could easily be prevented with some mental health assessments prior to purchasing a gun. If somebody is assessed and they know that they have, let's say they have schizophrenia, they have bipolar disorder, you would know that they may be incapable of properly caring for that firearm and not doing something erratic. Ban of military grade firearms. Military grade firearms such as AR-15s are ridiculous. You could shoot up to 70 rounds of bullets in just minutes. The amount of damage that this can do is unreal. The Las Vegas shooting, which was the largest mass shooting in America history, was carried out with an AR-15, and so many people lost their lives and were injured that night by just the guy shooting away and having no remorse for anybody or their lives. And no citizen should have access to things like that. It's not safe for anybody. Home inspections are another thing that should be enacted because having a gun just in a drawer is not safe enough, especially when a child could easily find it and access it. They should be locked up with either a passcode, a lock, in a safe, whatever it needs to be. They should be in no access to anybody but the owner. And lastly, I feel as though gun safety courses are another way that we could help prevent mishaps from happening like this, because the person who owns the gun should learn and know how to properly utilize it and store it safely. They're serious weapons and can take the life of another individual, and nobody should just have access to that. It's unreal to me that this isn't something that happens, because not having knowledge or any training and having the access to a weapon so capable of damage is not something that should be taken lightly. You really never know how gun violence can affect you or the people around you, and it could happen at any time, any place, and anywhere. And although it's a tragic thing, a lot of us are in fear, and it's not something that we should take lightly. The government really needs to make reform and create a way to where people can have their Second Amendment right while still being able to keep the citizens safe, because it's not about taking away the Second Amendment right, it's about ending these tragedies and getting people the prevention from having access to weapons that can take the lives of individuals and cause really harmful and damaging situations. Thank you for listening.